Hi, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of EmmpowHER. I'm Cynthia Day, and this is
Jessica Bell. I'm so glad to be co-hosting with you today.
Thank you. This is our genius creative director. She is standing in for Miss Maria Day, my sister. We own and operate a luxury and commercial real estate company called Trusted Results Realty Group. And we are so excited to bring on Miss Paula Hester. Oh! So Miss Paula has been a powerhouse in the title and the real estate and title world. I send literally all of my business to them. Shout out to Alamo Title in Colleyville. Hi, Brandy. I've loved you forever. And, these two do all of our business. So, Paula, why don't you share with us, just about your career, where you're at, where you started, and where you are now?
Well, I started as a very young attorney in 1997 as just a regular attorney, doing a little bit of divorce work, a little bit of litigation, and stumbled into the title insurance business like everyone else. And I really liked it, which is very interesting since my lowest grade in law school was in real estate. But I enjoy title insurance. I have since the day that I got here. I worked for a small agency. I did a couple of minutes with another underwriter, and then I've been with the Fidelity family since 2002, starting at the Fidelity National Title Company brand, and then being at the Alamo Title Company brand where I met Cynthia for 9.5 years, and back to our sister company at Fidelity, all still under the umbrella of the Fidelity National Title Group of companies.
Awesome.
So I've been a lawyer for about 25 years. I'm board certified in real estate, and then I've been with Fidelity for just 20 years, just this last month.
Amazing. That is that's a track record.
Long history with our company. I
Yeah.
work for a great company, great management leadership, lots of really strong female leaders, and I've been very fortunate. I have had no reason to move around.
We don't hear about that type of longevity anymore.
No.
People kind of move around, so that must be a testament to Fidelity.
Definitely. I think, you have to continue to evolve and grow, even if you're a large corporation. And I actually just was at a leadership event and taught recruiting millennial and Gen Zs to a group of leaders at Fidelity. And one of the things I've told them is that the number one advice that I see, career advice for millennials and Gen Zs on TikTok, is change companies every 1 to 3 years so that you can make money. And that's unfortunate because it's obviously much better to find a great company, stick with them, and stick with a career plan. Obviously, you should always move if that's not working out, but I think longevity is overlooked. Loyalty is overlooked.
That's interesting.
Loyalty.
Yeah.
What a commodity.
I know.
A lost commodity.
Yeah, it is.
What is it like coaching Gen Z?
It's a challenge. It's different. Fortunately for me, I have children that are Gen Z, the young millennial, older Gen Z. So I've got two that are adults that kind of fall into that category. And it's different. I mean, they're very different, but they're smart and they're accepting and they're open and they work great in groups and they bring so many wonderful qualities to the table. They're phenomenal employees. You have to give them a pass on the things they're not that great at. But they're not great at the phone. They don't like to talk to people. They like to text. They like to IM. And so that's a skill we have to work on with younger employees. They also do have a lot of anxiety. And they grew up in a technology-based world. They're not used to talking to people. And they have a lot of anxiety around that. And that is, I'm a Gen Xer, and we're from rub some dirt in it and get over it. We're definitely not ones to kind of get into the anxiety and coddle that. But I find that Gen Z, millennials, they need a manager that can understand that and give them a softer set of criticisms. They want to do well. It's not that they are soft or that they don't do well, but they do need a little bit more encouragement.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I never even considered the psychology of the generation below us.
Right.
Coming from that internet world, the texting world, the cell phone world, I never even considered that. And, I think that's, a big testament to your personal leadership, because that is the type of reputation that actually precedes you, Paula, is your leadership. And, I think Brandy Driscoll and I can attest to that because, she's a huge fan of how you've actually grown their office, and how you've motivated, that team to produce at high levels. I mean, you raised the bar, with that team and the expectations that you helped to set with them. And then the fun systems that you did in order to grow them, I mean,
Brandy's amazing. She would have been amazing whether I was her manager or somebody else was her manager. But I think Brandy is, if I could put her in the setting of the Wizard of Oz, she always had everything that she needed. She just didn't have the confidence to believe that she had it. And so, but she always had it. She always had the ability. So I'm super proud of Brandy. She's amazing. I'm super proud of her. But I'm super proud of her because she found it within herself. She may give me the credit, but it really is just hers. It's just hers.
So then let's talk about that. Okay. Because you just talked about how you've brought out and allowed people to see the best in themselves. And then you just talked about a younger generation and how you allowed them to, you adapted to provide them with the softer criticisms that they needed in order to, operate at their optimal. So talk about your innate ability to connect with and motivate and lead people to bring out the best in them. How are you doing this?
Well, I mean, I don't always do it perfectly every day. I mean, let's be honest, we're all human, and I get irritated or impatient just as much as that someone else does. But I think I do have a fairly calm personality. I get wound up and competitive, but I don't get that way with the employees. It is a very difficult job. Whether you're a realtor, whether you're a lender, whether you're a title person, it's a tough industry. It's a lot of stress. It's the biggest purchase that most people are ever going to make in their lifetime. They're moving from one state to another sometimes, and there's all of that stress. And so I've learned as a closer, when I was a young closer, not to take any of that personally. And I feel kind of the same way about the employees. The employees are they're just absorbing that stress from the buyers and sellers, and sometimes it transfers to me just because I happen to be standing there. And so I think that's sort of the same skill set of just being that person that's just like, it's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. Let's look at why the buyer or seller is upset. Let's talk about what ways we can fix that. And I sort of see that with the closers or the title examiners that I manage. Just trying to understand what is going on with their day, why they may be upset today, or how they're communicating. And I've had some great assistants along the way that have coached them in how to communicate with me.
You sound like a counselor.
I almost feel like a counselor. Some days I do feel like a counselor. I see myself more as a cheerleader sometimes, but they counsel me too. I mean, I learn from them, they learn from me. But one of the interesting things that they've learned about me is when they come to tell me something, to tell me the bottom line first, and then tell me the story. Because if they tell me the story first and then they're leading up, I think it's way worse than it's going to be. And so by the time they get to it, if they come and they tell me we've had a loss and we're going to need a check to cover a loss, and they're telling me this whole story, and then at the end it's only $50, I'm like, hey, you should have led with that.
Lead with the
headline, and it's much better. So I think the great thing about being, and as we talked about longevity with the company, is that we get time to know each other, and we get time to work together even better. So Brandy, as much as I've learned about Brandy, she's learned about me too, and so she knows if she has to call me for something, she leads with the headline, and we just have this beautiful relationship, but that's evolved over the years, and that is one of the things I like about staying with the company for a while. Now, the company did move me from the Alamo brand back to the Fidelity brand, which was a whole other group of people that I got to start over with. So there is that. You have to be adaptable.
So I heard some really important key things. Number one, be adaptable. And number two, the communication. Not only did she learn how to study, her team, but she made her team learn how to communicate with her back. That is huge. I think in leadership, especially we women who are in leadership positions, teaching your team how to communicate best with you, I think is absolutely genius. You don't have to keep everything on your shoulders, like it's always you reaching them. Show them how to come up and reach you.
Absolutely.
I think that was a very eye-opening moment for me.
Yeah, and I had to learn to do that for my own sanity and self-preservation, and to try to keep my stress level low and make sure I can continue to be the calm one and not be rattled when they're trying to tell me information that may not be great. I mean, we are a title insurance company. We do have claims. We have suits and claims, and that's just part of our business. And so, if it's something very minor like a $50 loss, definitely lead with that.
What does that process look for you, like with a new employee? Like, how do you begin to lead them to communicate properly? Because I think communication is the biggest issue that most people have in all forms of business. So, how do you guide someone to do that?
Well, it definitely is over time, and it's over events, and it depends on what that employee's role is within our company. Certain employees I will interact with more than I do others. So the assistants or the receptionists I might not interact with as much on a day-to-day basis. Closers, attorneys, managers, much more so, because we're making bigger, higher level decisions. But one thing I have started doing that I think has allowed them to get to know me and me to get to know them better, which, keep in mind, when I moved back to the Fidelity brand, it was during the pandemic. So March 8th on Tuesday night, we have our award ceremony for last year. That is the first live event that I've done with these 70 people since I came to Fidelity. Wow. I mean, so I've not had any memories with them at all. And it's very hard when you compare that to the life that I had with Alamo, where I bought them baby gifts and I was part of their lives, and now I have to say goodbye to them. Somewhat goodbye. I mean, I still see them, of course, but now I've got a whole new group that I don't know. But to give that some perspective, 2 years of not doing any events with them. Lunches here and there, but no real big group event. So I started from the very beginning when I was at Fidelity of sending a Friday email, just kind of recapping the week, because I knew communication was a complaint that some of the employees had. And that has evolved into a Zoom meeting that I do on Fridays at 9:30 in the morning called Coffee with Paula. They get on. They don't have to get on. It's optional. They don't have to turn their cameras on. They don't have to participate. I said from the beginning, if it's me and one other person, then that person and I will just talk for 30 minutes. And they seem to love it. And I told them the only thing that I will say is I'm not going to do a Friday email anymore. So if you want to know what's going on, you got to get on the call. But you don't have to. No judgment. If you're just busy, you have closing, it should not be stressful. It's supposed to be fun. It's an opportunity for me to tell them what's going on. It's an opportunity for me to talk about different things. Someone was on vacation last week and was all nice and tan, so we talked about that for a few minutes. And it's 30 minutes, and I've been very pleasantly surprised at the feedback. That has bridged the gap with our millennials and Gen Zs because they like video.
So I was about to say, it's an interesting approach because it's less formal.
That's right.
You know, it used to be, but it kind of bridges that gap with younger, you know, people. So that's really interesting.
And it feels like, I think they feel like they know me more and I get to know them more if they choose to interact. And some of them will just interact in the chat, and that's okay. Like some of them are still a little shy about talking, but they'll interact with each other in the chat, or they'll make responses to my jokes or comments, and that's completely fine. I think it kind of gives you that feeling of social media where you know each other a little bit more, and you do interact more. So yeah, it does come with time though. I don't think you can force it.
So but developing new relationships with perfect strangers, you know, so for all of us, you know, corporate ladies that are moving up through the ladder and are, you know, they're putting little powerhouses, you know, in places that need to be developed, that need to be lifted up and to become more successful. So Paula has actually created a way to introduce herself to her group in a fun, no pressure, all about just be real, get to know her kind of way. And so she's created interaction. No emails that people have to sit through and read. It's personal, it's interactive. I really like this.
I think one of the best pieces of business advice I ever read was, you know, you need to grow your company in a way that you could step away and that company could still go on without you. And I think that if anything, I'm the most proud of the Alamo brand, because I stepped away from it and it didn't miss a beat. And they're very sweet. They'll send me emails, tell me they miss me, or I'll stop in one of the branches every once in a while and see them. But for the most part, they didn't miss a beat. They've continued to rise. And I think that is the goal. I think that is the goal.
How did you do that? Tell us how you did that. We want to know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure it was on purpose, because I don't know that I ever imagined that I would just shift across Dallas-Fort Worth to another brand. I mean, certainly there's always the possibility the company could move you to another part of the United States, but it doesn't happen very often where we just simply move brands across the same city and now just become the competitor across the street with a different label. So I don't know that I ever was that intentional about it, but I have read that advice in the past that, you know, are you really a good leader if you have to leave the company or you retire and the company falls apart? That may make you feel good inside, like they were all dependent upon me, but did you really do a good job leading that company?
Them, right?
Absolutely. And you weren't putting systems in place so that they could continue to manage themselves. And our number one precept at the Fidelity group of companies is autonomy. And I think that I would say that about all of the Alamo and the Fidelity folks. The Fidelity folks have just had a shorter time, so they're still learning it. But I think the Alamo group really embraced the autonomy precept, and while they may have been sad to see me go, I think they embraced their new leader quite nicely, and I think they've not missed a beat.
So what contributing factors did you put in place? Like, did you create fun systems that they still follow? How did you develop the leader within them for them to keep, to keep that pace? Like, what did you do?
I think the number one thing that I try to do is to make sure that, especially the managers, have relationships with everyone, as many people as I can at our company. We are a Fortune 288 company. We feel small, but we're very large. There are but one of the things that's so great about our company is it's made up of brandies. It's made up of Alamo and Colleyvilles and Fidelities and Southlake. It's just a bunch of little building blocks that make up this Fortune 288 company. And there are a lot of people at our company just like Brandy, and making sure that they all have relationships with one another besides me, I think was a key to making them feel like they were part of a bigger company. And I did chuckle the day that we announced that I was being moved to the Fidelity brand. If you go back and look at the analytics on my LinkedIn page, you'll see my views went like this. Because everyone in the industry was like, what just happened? And coming to my LinkedIn page, which I didn't change for a few days, so they were trying to verify the story was accurate. And it's very funny to look at, because my LinkedIn views are like rocking along, and then all of a sudden there's this really big spike. And the recruiters were just crazy calling all the Alamo employees, trying to get them to jump ship. And they didn't. And for the most part, they didn't lose anybody. Everyone stayed. And I think you just have to be confident and comfortable enough to make sure employees have relationships with the company that's outside of you. And you have to be confident in that.
It's interesting you're talking about your LinkedIn analytics. I'm kind of on that side, so I think you're interested. As somebody that works for a Fortune 288 company, what is your relationship like on LinkedIn and social media? How do you use it in that position?
So I probably don't use it as well as I should. I do tend to be really careful about what I post, because we are a provider of title insurance, and we do handle people's money and their biggest investments, and I take that really, really seriously. The fun social media that other consumer-based companies do is probably not appropriate for our company. You probably don't want to see me, in some crazy costume doing a dance if I'm the one that's handling your, multi-million dollars in my escrow account. It's probably not appropriate. So we're pretty thoughtful about how we use social media. Mm-hmm. I have always personally just used it for people just to know me a little bit better, so that when I'm recruiting, they get a sense of maybe who I am, who my family is. Mm-hmm. other than that, I'm pretty reserved with what I post on social media. I'm pretty private about my opinions about the world and things like that. I really just post everyday things so that people have a chance to know me a little bit better. And I primarily do it for recruiting, because if you're asking you to join my company and you don't know me, then that gives you a place to go back and just kind of look at some little things about me.
Yeah, so you're kind of using it in the same way that you said that you led people and kind of letting them in on a little personal note, but not too much.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
absolutely. Yeah. And we've just finished talking, like I said, I just was in Vegas at a leadership event for our company. We had a long conversation about millennials and Gen Zs and social media and how they use social media. And millennials and Gen Zs, they know how to develop a personal brand. They know that. So they know how to research your company on social media as well. So it was a big topic of discussion. So maybe we'll end up doing a little bit more on social media to open ourselves up to be, to connect and have a relationship with those younger employees coming up. We'll see.
What do you wish you had known when you got in this business?
I wish I had had two things when I got into the business, and especially as I got onto the corporate side. I was what we call a fee attorney, which is very much like being an agent at a brokerage back when I was younger. And then I joined the company on the corporate side in maybe 2009, I think it was. What I wish that I had from day one, and what I would tell any young employee that's looking to have a career moving up through the ranks at a corporation, especially a young woman, would be two things. One, a coach. I think there is no substitute for having a personal coach. That coach can take on a lot of different looks. It could be, maybe it's a therapist, or maybe it's just a business coach, but I don't think there's any substitute for that. I get to be brutally honest with my coach. I get to say the things I would never say out loud to anyone else. I get the tough love, because I am a fan of Paula, Suck It Up, and I like someone to tell me when I'm being a crybaby, and he does that for me. I've had him for quite a while. He's amazing, and I think my career really, really skyrocketed, and my management skills got really strong once I started getting coached. And so I would say from day one, a coach, whatever you can afford, because coaching is not necessarily cheap.
Not at all.
Not at all. So whatever you can do, whether that's listening to podcasts in the beginning, then whatever it is that you can do to get that coaching, I think is really important. But the second one, even more important than coaching, is a group of female colleagues. And I have a group of women that are in the same position I am in the company, in different operations, Houston, Florida, and they are amazing. And they are therapists and girlfriend and coach and a sounding board and everything that you can think of in my life. The stress level of my job minimized once I found that group of women to lift me up, and that women I can lift up. And it helps that we're not direct competitors, right? We're in different cities.
Sure.
But yeah, amazing. I wish I'd had both of those things from the very beginning. I'm very happy with where my career is at today, but I can tell you if I'd had both those things from day one, my career would be probably even farther along.
So I love getting to know you, and what I'm understanding is that the strength of your leadership really lies in the connection that you really easily make with people. It sounds like you're very real, a very genuine, and it sounds like you don't mind brutal honesty.
I don't.
In love, right?
Right.
Brutal honesty, and those are the key factors to her leadership. I mean, to lead a group of people and they don't miss a beat when you leave is huge. So what would you say, is kind of like your superpower, and how do you empower and serve humanity with it?
I think if I have a superpower, it would be that I'm not afraid for people to see that I can be a little bit of a mess. I don't have any need to pretend to be more together than I am. I remember, I have twins now that are about to be 16, boy-girl twins. I have two older children, older than that. But I remember being at an event, and my oldest daughter, my second oldest child, my oldest daughter is a professional ballet dancer. And I remember when she was younger, she was at a dance competition, and I was sitting with another mom, and we had babies the exact same age. And I don't know where my boy twin was, but I'm holding the girl twin, she's holding her girl, exact same age. Her girl is in this matching cute little outfit, socks, shoes, big bow in the hair, right? My daughter is in clothes that don't match, no shoes, missing a sock, and some stain on her face. And at first I'm looking at the two of them, and I just feel that rush of mom guilt of I'm not good enough, and it's never going to be enough, and can you have it all? I don't believe you can. I think you have to recalibrate what you think all is. And I think I don't know if it was that defining moment, but I think there were moments like that along the way where I was just like, you know what, I can't do this. I'm never going to be that woman, that mom, that leader, that employee, that friend. I can be a mess sometimes. I forget things, and I can have a conversation with you right now and tell you I'm going to do something. By the time I'm at my car, I've long forgotten about it. So I acknowledge those things, and I try to put in, ways to not forget what I tell people I'll do, and to cover up some of my messes. But I think I'm also pretty good. I'm pretty okay with people seeing that I'm real. I don't need to pretend to be something I'm not. I don't have a need for someone to think that I have it all together and that I have all the answers, because I don't, and no one does. And it's when we hold women especially up to that standard of perfection, then I think we just learn to hate ourselves. We learn to turn that in. So I think that people get comfortable with me because they know that I'm they don't have some, I don't look like some glossy magazine cover, right? They, I'm just as likely to have on 2 different shoes as anybody else. And I think they get comfortable with me. I hope anyway. I hope that.
Yes, definitely. So your vulnerability is what makes you relatable, and then your relatableness makes you a good leader.
I think so.
That's interesting.
I think that's what they would. I think if you paraded my employees in here, I think that's what they would tell you. I think that they would tell you they feel comfortable coming to me with their personal problems or challenges, and I think they know that if they've made a mistake, that I'll be okay. It'll be okay. We'll work through it. I think that that's the way that they would probably phrase it.
A lot of women, in your type of position, a lot of times feel the kind of need to not show that vulnerability, right? Do you think that that's really actually have to progress more or have you felt that pressure to be kind of, the perfect example of, mom, woman, everything?
I think there are certain instances where you probably need to put your best foot forward, and maybe oversharing is not appropriate. Certainly I wouldn't want the people that I work for to ever question whether, I'm competent to do my job, or I would certainly not want to show up to a big meeting in 2 different colored shoes. Not saying it couldn't happen, but I think there are certain situations where there is a lot of pressure to put your best foot forward, and to give the appearance of being a very competent, put together female executive. I think that we all could sort of rise to the challenge and do that. I do think that, if I were walking into a meeting and I had on 2 different shoes, one of my girlfriend colleagues would say, hey, I got another pair of shoes in my car.
Right.
Let's get to change for you. So I think there's that. So yeah, I think some of that's not ever going to go away. I mean, you want to put your best foot forward when you're in a professional situation, and those are probably not the right times to, in my case, overshare, which I tend to do a lot. So.
Okay. Note to self. So you mentioned earlier leading a team that basically leads themselves in your absence. And you mentioned something about plugging them into the company.
Right.
So what does that mean, and what does that look like?
So it's pretty easy for me to answer questions. It would be pretty easy for me to go and find the information and deliver it back to that person and keep the relationships with the other members of our company, sort of in my satchel, so that everyone has to come to me for everything they need. Number one, you can't lead a large team that way. There's too many questions on any given day for me to answer them all. And secondly, you're not growing future leaders that way. So for example, we have a large commercial unit in Dallas, and I've made sure that our new manager, who's fairly young to me, it's not that young, but young to me, it has these relationships with other people in the company. So we are working on a fairly large $2.5 billion commercial transaction, which to close a $2.5 billion requires quite a bit of work, even for a company our size. There's a lot of things that have to be done. And so we had this conversation about getting ready for this deal to come in, and I made sure he was introduced to the head underwriters out of Jacksonville and our management team for the underwriting side and escrow side, so he could have those conversations, so he could lead the team to get that deal closed, because he's in charge of the commercial unit, rather than me be the one to have those conversations and lead that team and potentially do that, break that ribbon going across the finish line. Now I did ask, could I sign one document just so I can say I closed a $2.5 billion deal? But yeah, just making sure that everybody gets to have the relationships within the company. You're not the middleman. You're not cutting off that information from them, and you're making sure they have a direct relationship with the resource. And I think at Alamo we were able to do that, and they all knew who to go to in the company for different things. They never felt like it was just me. Now, if it was something new and they hadn't done it before, then they would have to call me.
Sure.
But yeah, try not to be the one that controls all the information, and not to control the situation completely. You have to be confident in what you bring to the table and know that you're developing leaders, and that's not a threat to you in your position. I've never understood people who want to hire folks that are not as qualified so that they look better. I mean, I'm okay if I'm the dumbest one in the room. I'm really, really okay. That's okay. And I want my leaders and my closers to be better than I am. It's great. I think it's great when they know an answer I don't know. And so I think tactically speaking, that's what it is. Making sure you're not controlling the flow of information and resources so that you are necessary to the transaction. Letting them be able to do it without you.
That's great, Paula. That's excellent. That's excellent advice. So to all of our women entrepreneurs, all of our women leaders out here in the world, this is excellent advice on how to develop and connect the leaders within your organization so that they can continue to develop and flourish outside of you. I think it's excellent. So do we have any closing questions?
Can you relate that back to how you deal with people outside of the workplace, or just how maybe you inspire your own daughters, or
Oh, that's a great question.
That's a good question. How do I inspire my own daughters? So I have 2 daughters and 2 boys, and my daughters are very different from one another. My oldest daughter, as I mentioned, is a professional ballet dancer. My youngest daughter played football her 8th grade and 9th grade year with Grapevine. So very, very different. She's got dark hair like Cynthia's with red streaks on the side. My oldest daughter's blonde, and your typical California blonde. She went to school in California. They're as different as they could possibly be. And I think that's key, is recognizing they are different. They're both very special, very driven. Whitney is, she's my ballet dancer. She's a hard worker. She has a typical millennial Gen Z anxiety, and being a ballet dancer, you have a lot of rejection, of course, and a lot of great, the wins are never enough. The wins do not pile up. And I was listening to a podcast the other day where the woman was talking about, I think she was talking about dating, but she was talking about affirmations. And when you don't love yourself, there aren't enough affirmations to overcome that. Like, it's never enough. It's like going to the vending machine for more candy. You're like, oh, I'm so hungry again. I want some more affirmations to make myself feel good. And so I think she struggles a little bit with that. So I have to be there and for her and get her focused on a plan, because I'm very action oriented. If I feel bad, if I can come up with a plan, I'll feel a lot better. So that's really the tactic that I use with her.
Is that part of your self-care?
It is part of my self-care. It really is. My worst moments are at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I can't wake up enough to come up with a tactical plan, but something is just kind of eating at me. So that I'm always the hardest on myself in the middle of the night if I happen to wake up. But yeah, coming up with a plan always is, for me, that self-care. And for her, that's what I try to help her with, is to come up with that tactical plan. It's okay. Here's where you're trying to go. Here's where we're going to get there. Yeah, it may look different by the time you get there, but here's a plan. The other one, not so much. I mean, she is just creative and spontaneous and doesn't take advice very well at all. She thinks I'm probably the dumbest person on the planet. Although I think she loves me fiercely. She's not impressed with me.
That's the first time I've ever felt that way. That's normal.
I don't think she's overly impressed with me. However, I will say for her, I give her space to be herself. I don't try to put her in the box of being a blonde ballet dancer, because it's got to be hard. Like, you come up and you look completely different than the oldest daughter, who, it's not every day that someone tells you their daughter's a professional ballet dancer. It's a pretty special job. She's had a special life. And Kaylee, my youngest one, has a special life too, playing football. She's been interviewed on the news for that.
Oh my gosh, that's so
cool. Yes, it's amazing. Channel 8 did a news program with her a couple years ago. So she's had amazing, she's only 15. She's had amazing little 15 years to herself. But I give her room to be herself, and I try to step back and not think about her in terms of the way Whitney was as a daughter, and being careful about clothes and makeup. That was Whitney's thing. That's not Kaylee. So I think that helps when you're talking about 100 or so employees. And applying those same principles to your children. They're all different. They're not all going to achieve at the same rate or the same way. So just acceptance. I think just acceptance. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Acceptance and not comparing one to the other. That's huge.
Yeah. And knowing the journeys are both going to be great. They're going to be different, but they're going to be great. And that's okay.
Okay. So is there anything else about self-care that you could really instill within us as hardworking, entrepreneurial-minded women who work ourselves to the to the bone, and then we come home and we have to be mom, So what would you say about self-care that you could, instill within us?
I think for me, that's been a struggle as I've gotten older. I'd either go 100 miles an hour or go 0. I don't have an in-between gear at all. And so when I'm done going 100 miles an hour, then I'm just kind of 0. And that's okay. I think being 0 is okay. I think if you need a day to watch Netflix because it's raining or cold, or you just don't feel like it, that is perfectly fine. Just don't stay there very long. Because I think it does get to be a vicious cycle, and it can be a vicious cycle pretty easily. It's really important taking time for yourself, making sure you take vacations. Don't work when you're sick. I hope we learned that from the pandemic.
Yeah.
Take that time to Netflix and chill if you need it. Just don't stay there too long. Like, give yourself permission to do it and enjoy it, and don't beat yourself up about it, but set a time limit for it. Because I do think it can easily roll into something bigger if you stay there too long.
Is that a part of that rub the dirt on it mentality?
Maybe it is. I know for me, I feel better when I'm doing things. And there are moments when the stress level's high and I need to step back from it, and I can always feel when I need a vacation. But if I do too many days of Netflix and chill, then I feel like it's harder to get back into it. So
definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I want to thank Miss Paula Hester. You can find Paula and her contact information, or her company information, on our Facebook page for EmmpowHER, and you can find her entire segment on our Facebook page as well, and our YouTube channel. Yes. Awesome.
Well, thank you for having me co-host with you, Cynthia.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. You definitely added great questions and value to this whole thing, so we appreciate you as always.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bye.